It started as a whisper. A burst of binary static, hidden in the background hum of a dying star. Then came the scream, warped, fractured, and panicked. A distress signal encoded with ancient diplomatic encryption no longer in use by any of the core empires. But it reached Earth anyway. And Earth answered. The message was never meant for them. It was supposed to be routed to the Zyroth Concordat, the dominant military power in that spiral arm. Or maybe the Kavari Protectorates, known for sending legions of drones into border skirmishes. Instead, the signal bounced across decommissioned satellites, forgotten jump relays, and finally, into a Terran deep space listening station near the Eris Drift. And within 8 minutes, Earth's unified defense network decrypted the scream. To any council-recognized sovereign. This is the 7th Fleet of the Veperan Republic. We are under siege. Unknown biomechanical entities breached 3 planetary cores. Civilian centers lost. Our gods are dead. Please send anything. For 2 days there was no reply. None from the Zyroth. None from the Kavari. None from any of the great races that signed the Council's war accords. They were all too far. Too busy. Or worse, afraid. But Earth? Earth wasn't bound by Council delay protocols. And they'd seen enough wars end in silence. So they sent a single response. Help is on the way. This is Commander Tariq Voss. Earth Defense Force. The Veperan didn't know what to make of the reply. Their command chain had shattered. Their tactical AIs had gone silent. The stars above their world now spun unnaturally, infected by strange gravitational pulses that didn't obey physics. When the Veperan remaining High Priest, Garansah, was handed the Earth transmission by a frightened technician, he simply asked, "Where is Earth?" The answer he got was worse than ignorance. "We don't know. They're off-chart." 12 hours later, a ship arrived in orbit. Just one ship. No fleet. No dreadnought escort. No grand introduction. But the moment it broke atmosphere, Veperan sensors began to malfunction. Not due to jamming. Due to sheer power saturation. TSV Leviathan. Human design. Atmospheric displacement, 7 kilometers wide. Energy output, impossible. Hull structure unknown alloys. Shielding, operated on logic Veperan scientists couldn't parse. The Veperan believed it was a trick at first, a projection. A warning from the enemy. Until the ship's comms opened, and a voice filled their broken skies. "This is Commander Voss. Permission to land denied, but that's cute. We're coming down anyway." They expected a squad. Instead, the Leviathan deployed 3 Ares pattern drop towers, each slamming into the ground with the force of a meteor strike. What came out? Not men. Monsters in human skin. The Veperan had never seen Terran soldiers up close. They had only heard stories. Of ghost squads that dismantled pirate fleets in 72 seconds. Of ancient outposts on dead moons found years later, with bodies stacked in patterns the locals could never explain. Of the Red Doctrine, invoked only once during the Abyssal Rift siege, when Earth sent 12 volunteers into a black zone and got back a clean system. These were those kinds of soldiers. No medals. No names. Just a patch. A sigil. A phrase that chilled the Veperan survivors. "We come last." The battlefield was chaos. Veperan cities lay in ruin, organic matter fused with metal, their very foundations reshaped by some invading force that warped causality itself. Massive serpentine creatures stalked through the mist, moving in impossible patterns, 1 frame per heartbeat, then suddenly everywhere. Veperan plasma rifles bounced off them. Terran weapons didn't. Because the humans didn't fire bullets. They fired verdicts. Phase 1 of Operation Grimdor began the moment Commander Voss touched down. He didn't give a speech. He gave orders. Reclaim the central fusion line. Set collapse charges on 4 quadrants. Extract what civilians remained. Do not waste time explaining. When a Veperan officer tried to interrupt with diplomacy, Voss turned calmly, his voice like distant thunder. "You called us. You don't tell fire how to burn. Within 3 hours, half the lost sector was under human control. Not because of numbers. Because of ruthlessness. Humans fought like they'd already died once, and were just borrowing time. Where the veteran retreated, humans advanced. Where the veteran pleaded for mercy, humans hunted. And where the enemy adapted, humanity didn't. They outstubborned physics. Veteran survivors started whispering among themselves. What did we invite? They'd asked for help. But the help they received didn't resemble salvation. It resembled judgment. On the 4th day, the bioentities began to retreat. Not because they were losing, but because they learned fear. One intercepted signal, decoded by human linguists, contained a single phrase. The warbloods walk again. Retreat before the rot spreads. The warbloods. Even the enemy had a name for humans. By the 7th day, the capital was reclaimed. And on the 8th, the Leviathan departed, without celebration, without fanfare. They left behind clean zones, rebuilt fusion cores, and a warning etched into a tower of salvaged enemy bone. We only come when it's too late. Next time, be ready yourselves. But that wasn't the end. Because as the Leviathan crossed back into Terran space, the veteran High Priest stepped onto the Galactic relay and made an announcement that shook every core world. Earth answered when no one else did. Earth fought when our gods failed. Earth saved us. But make no mistake, we are terrified of them now. When the Leviathan vanished from veteran space, it didn't head straight home. It vanished into the void. No flight path filed. No exit corridor reported. It simply blinked out of local phase space, like a memory deleted by force. That terrified the Council more than the battlefield footage. And yet, Earth hadn't violated any treaties. No borders crossed without permission. No galactic law broken. In fact, technically, they'd done exactly what was asked of them. And that terrified the Council even more. Within 20 hours of the veteran High Priest's address, the Council chambers summoned an emergency assembly. Delegates from all known species gathered, every major military and scientific power included. The news spread fast across the core worlds. Earth was being questioned. Not for starting a war, but for ending one so completely. The assembly hall was a circular amphitheater built on floating grav plates, orbiting the gas giant Mectoran Prime. Normally serene. Today, it felt like a tribunal. The seats were full. The air was sharp. And Earth was late. Speaker Asari of the Telari Enclave stood, her translucent wings trembling behind her as she addressed the Council. We stand united in concern, not just over the use of overwhelming force, but the manner of it. She paused, casting a side glance toward the delegate station marked, Earth, still empty. This species responded to a single cry for help with weapons we don't even understand. They deployed experimental technology without clearance. They altered veteran atmospheric density to suit their own physiology. They left a warning carved into bone. This is not rescue. This is ritual. Others agreed. The Zeraxi Coalition called it psychological warfare wrapped in aid. The Aquari matriarchs feared Earth had tested a planetary-level weapon under the guise of rescue. Even the Kavari, known warmongers, whispered that Earth had taken too much pleasure in the conflict. But before the vote to censure could be called, the lights dimmed, and a single Terran ship materialized in orbit. No flight beacons. No arrival codes. Just a sudden presence. As if the ship had been there the whole time, waiting for the right moment to be seen. TSV Deliverance. Command, Terran Diplomatic Unit. But the hull bore scars from a war no one remembered. The ship looked like it had died. And crawled back. Inside the chamber, the Earth delegation entered. Just 3 people. Ambassador Lin Ren, flanked by 2 others. One wore a suit marked Operator Class. The other wore no markings at all. The unknown one unnerved even the Jaikai, who were evolved from predators. No name. No scent. No aura. Just presence. Ambassador Lin bowed her head politely, then placed a small cube on the central pedestal. Before we address the council, she said calmly, we offer testimony. The cube activated. A hologram rose above the chamber, not of the Veprin War, but something else. It showed a planet none recognized. A dead world. Not glassed, not burned, emptied. Every building intact. Every satellite in place. But no life. Even bacteria, absent. The audio that followed was fragmented, but clear enough. They moved in silence. Nothing natural makes that noise. The stars dimmed first, then time itself. We are not facing an invasion. We are facing an erasure. The council fell silent. Because the footage was dated, hundreds of cycles ago. And no one remembered this war. Except Earth. Ambassador Lin continued. We are not expanding. We are not conquering. We are preparing. Her gaze swept the room, calm, unapologetic. The entities that attacked Veprin space were not the enemy. They were scouts. We've seen them before. We've fought them before. And the last time we won, the cost was so great your ancestors chose to forget. She pointed at the cube. We didn't. Delegate Zartor of the Kavari snarled. You're lying. That's manufactured footage. A psychological ploy. You want to destabilize us. The unknown Terran stepped forward. No title. No words. Just a gesture. They placed a skull on the pedestal. Twisted. Metallic. Organic. Still steaming. Recovered from the Veprin siege, the operator said. Grew itself a neural core patterned after our own. Adaptive speech organ. Mimicked local faith dialects. Was preparing to broadcast. Broadcast what? He tapped the skull once. It spoke. Do not fear. We will make your suffering useful. A wave of horror passed through the chamber. Not just because of the voice. Because of the language it used. Ancient. Forbidden. A dialect found only in the sealed archives of pre-council eras. The Voitum. Lin nodded at their reaction. We didn't respond to Veprin distress because we wanted to test weapons. We responded because we heard the old voice again. And where that voice speaks, extinction follows. The vote to censure Earth was cancelled. Not through formal retraction, but because no one dared speak after that. That night, on 6 different worlds, emergency briefings were held. The old threats were discussed. The banned records re-examined. And Earth? Earth went dark again. No news signals. No broadcasts. Just one message, looping quietly across the diplomatic channels. The first war was survived through silence. The second will be won through remembrance. Decide now, will you stand with us, or wait to be erased? The galaxy had called Earth for help. Now, they debated whether that was the beginning of salvation, or the start of something much, much worse. 12 days later. They didn't attack Earth. They didn't even threaten it. The enemy, whatever it truly was, knew something far more effective. Wait. Watch. Let the others make the first mistake. And one of them did. Deep within Council territory, hidden behind censor cloaks and bureaucratic lies, a secret transmission pulsed into the dark. Target location identified, Terran Archive Node 3. Coordinates attached. Deliver the payload. Humanity cannot be allowed to lead this war. The sender? A council race that had voted for Earth's inclusion publicly, but feared Earth's influence more than the coming war. The Jaikai Syndicate. On paper, they were allies. But in truth, they saw humans as unstable weapons. Loud. Unpredictable. Worse, uncontrollable. So they acted. A stealth drone, black as void skin and etched with cloaking runes, slipped into the Kovash Drift, the location of Terran Archive Node 3. Not a base. A buried intelligence construct, older than any Terran ship. A deep mind grown from the last war's psychic remains. The Council believed it held something dangerous. They were right. The Jaikai called it. preventative containment. But what they triggered was invitation. As the drone pierced Node 3's outer defenses, it uploaded a viral sequence meant to overwrite the Terran failsafes. For exactly 4.3 seconds, it succeeded. That's all it took. The construct, called ANA, Exile, blinked. And in that blink, it remembered the voice. A pulse fired from the node. Not out. Down. Through buried matter. Through layered quantum static. And into a forgotten system that hadn't been charted in 11,000 years. System designation, Thani 0. Officially marked uninhabitable. Classified as gravitationally unstable. Access prohibited. Why? Because it was where the last war ended. And where the first contact with the enemy began. The Council's top security AI caught the pulse. But before it could issue a countermeasure, a second pulse fired back. From Thani's. Not data. Not light. A voice. We see you again. We hoped you'd return. Come and finish what you started. Earth heard it first. Not by comms. Not by scan. But in their minds. Commander Tarek Voss, still aboard the Deliverance, awoke with blood dripping from his nose. Aya Karin, lead envoy to the Council, collapsed mid-speech with a scream. They spoke my name, but I've never told anyone. On Lunar Base 7, an entire listening post blacked out, its staff comatose, whispering in dead languages that hadn't been spoken in millennia. Earth's DeepMind AI Chorus activated emergency protocol. Event class, Omega return. Doctrinal override recommended. Suggest enacting solemn iterum. They'd hoped the silence meant safety. Now they knew. It was bait. Council chambers were thrown into chaos. Why did Thani's respond? Who sent the pulse? Why is Earth calm while we're panicking? Because Earth had always known it would come to this. And they'd prepared for betrayal. The Jaikai denied involvement. Of course they did. But Earth didn't press charges. Didn't retaliate. Didn't even flinch. They just activated protocol, Shadow Beacon. A single Terran ship, TSV Vulture, was dispatched to Thani's. No weapons active. No escort. No comms. Just one operator on board. Commander Voss objected. We should send the Leviathan. Ambassador Rin shook her head. We need eyes, not war. And when it ends badly? She looked at him. Then we do what we always do. Return the favor. The Vulture arrived at Thani's orbit without incident. Sensors showed nothing. Then the stars blinked. Not as if obscured. As if they looked away. The crewman aboard the Vulture, call sign Milo, recorded his final entry as the ship descended. This place doesn't feel dead. It feels paused. Like it's been holding its breath since we left. Since Earth won last time. The darkness here isn't cold. It's patient. Then came the final words, just before transmission was cut. They asked me something. They asked if we were ready to remember. Back on Earth, the signal stopped. And across every known system, only Earth received a final encrypted pulse. A fragment of a map. Coordinates. A message carved in inverse light. You left something behind. Come and take it back. The Council demanded Earth stand down. Do not pursue Thani's. Do not provoke them further. We will handle this diplomatically. But Earth simply stared. And said nothing. Because they were already preparing to leave. Not in anger. Not in vengeance. But because Earth understood the truth. This war was never about species. Or borders. Or alliances. This was about what had been hidden. And who had buried it. As the first Terran fleet mobilized, the Deliverance launched its beacon. Humanity is moving toward the darkness not because we seek war, but because it remembers us. And we intend to remind it why that's a mistake. The Council now had a new fear. Earth had seen the enemy once, long ago. Then forgotten. Now they remembered. And the last thing the galaxy wanted was to learn what Earth was like when it finally took its gloves off. TSV Oblivion's edge breached the Thani's system first. Then came the Justicar, Nightfall, and Echo of Terra, flagships of Earth's Black Sun fleet, long believed to be myths by most galactic records. But these weren't warships built for conquest. They were relics, ships kept in stasis, powered by cores built from the remains of fallen gods. Each vessel bore a single mark. Ex Surgera Umbra, from the shadow we rise. The council watched in stunned silence. They had expected Terran escalation. But not this. Not this ancient mobilization, as if Earth had always known this day would come. They tried again to stop it. Tried to argue. To threaten. To plead. But Earth didn't send a reply. Because Earth wasn't asking. Thani's zero. It wasn't a planet. It was a wound. A hollowed, frozen shell where physics weakened, and memory decayed. Ships entering orbit suffered temporary neural flickers. AI guidance failed. Even thoughts twisted inside out. Only the Terrans remained clear-eyed. Because they'd been here before. Ayaka stood aboard the Echo of Terra, wrapped in ceremonial armor from the First Erasure War. Not nanofiber. Not exoplate. But memory-woven silk, threaded with psionic patterns that kept her sane in the gravitational distortion. She looked out the viewing deck. Below, the ground moved like breath. Commander Voss's voice came through. Confirmed. Central landmark is still intact. Beacon pulsing in the exact rhythm we buried it with. She nodded grimly. They're inviting us in. The descent. 6 Earth drop craft pierced Thani's atmosphere like needles. Each carried specialized personnel. Not soldiers. Witnesses. Scientists. Strategists. Priests. Because what Earth had hidden here wasn't a weapon. It was a truth too dangerous to forget. At the core of Thani's lay the Vault of Return. It opened before they touched it. Not to welcome them. But to finish the conversation. Inside, black spires pulsed with inverted light. Voices echoed, not in air, but in bone. And at the center, a humanoid figure. Kneeling. Still. Encased in living armor older than Earth's continents. A single symbol glowed faint on its chest. I remember. Ayaka stepped forward. The chamber recognized her. A voice boomed, not aloud, but inside every Terran mind. You silenced us once. Buried the seed of your own undoing. Did you think memory would stay dead? Commander Voss whispered. So it was never just invasion. Ayaka nodded. It was extraction. They came for this. The kneeling figure was human. But not. It had once been Commander Elias Harker, hero of the First Erasure. Lost to the rift. Earth had told the galaxy he'd died destroying the enemy. They lied. He hadn't died. He had merged. He had let the enemy inside. To learn it. Trap it. Contain it. And now? He was it. Suddenly, the chambers surged with dark energy. All across Thani's, the Eater constructs awakened. Black serpentine vessels rose from the crust. Vast wings unfolded. Singularities blinked open, dragging space around them like cloaks. The final voice came not from Harker, but from the void itself. You tried to forget. But we remember. We remember your screams. Your defiance. Your betrayal. Ayaka stepped toward the kneeling figure. She placed her palm against its helm. I remember too. And whispered the final command. Initiate final doctrine, mirror fire. Thani's burned. Not with fire. But with echoed pain. The vault exploded outward in waves of memory, flashes of every species the Eaters had consumed. They cried. Screamed. Pleaded. And then they were heard. Because Earth had built Thani's not to hide Harker, but to trap the Eaters inside his mind. Now they weren't just fighting humans. They were fighting every soul they'd ever consumed. And they couldn't win that. One by one, their constructs collapsed. Inverted. Fell into themselves. Gone. Harker's form flickered once, looking at Ayaka. Tell them it worked. Then vanished. Lightless. silent, at peace. The Leviathan arrived just in time to retrieve survivors. Earth didn't cheer, didn't boast. They mourned. Because they'd done what no other race could. They'd remembered what the galaxy had chosen to forget, and paid the price to end it. The Council's final broadcast. Earth stood before the Galactic Assembly one last time. Ica addressed them all. We did what was necessary. What you were afraid to do. Not for power. Not for territory. But because we remember how this ends when no one does. She paused, then smiled, softly. You were right to fear us. Just not for the reason you thought. We are not monsters. We are witnesses. And we'll always be the ones who walk into the dark first. The chamber stood in silence. For the first time in Council history. No one asked Earth to leave. They stood. And bowed. Humanity didn't stay. Didn't take thrones. Didn't demand tribute. They returned to their ships. And vanished again. Waiting. Watching. Because somewhere out there, something else might rise. And when it does, Earth will be ready. Police Galactic, you've reached the end, but the void is never silent. If this story left your pulse pounding, if you felt the dread, the awe, the fire of what it means to be human in a galaxy that forgot us, then subscribe to the Void Narratives, where we remember, where we fight, where our stories burn brighter than stars. The next war is coming, and you'll want to be there when humanity answers the call.